Hi, folks. Another beautiful day in America where Democrats keep insisting everything's fine while sprinting away from their own mess faster than Gavin Newsom dodging a follow-up question. And there's no greater follower of that philosophy than Mayor Karen in Los Angeles herself, who bailed out of a rare town hall so fast you think someone yelled accountability in a crowded theater. Residents were literally mid-sentence, and she just hit the exits like it was an Olympic qualifier. And that panic energy pairs perfectly with our first clip today, where Bill Maher has to patiently explain to Patton Oswalt that, yes, Democrats really did push the whole don't put sex on the birth certificate craze. Proof that living in a progressive bubble apparently comes with a complimentary amnesia.
That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes.
Yes.
When were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California.
Yeah.
See,
To teach what?
Don't put sex on the birth certificate. We'll see. Now, we've passed that period now.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I mean,
I know, because it doesn't get in the blue sky bubble.
Wait a minute, I'm not just on blue sky.
I really think
Yeah,
that's a
you
lot
are.
of it, is that some of this stuff doesn't get in to everybody's media.
I'm of a mind, because I remember the African-American community was always saying there's brutality from the cops. Everyone said, oh, that's ridiculous. Stop it. This is all myth. And then cops started wearing body cameras, and lo and behold, there's all this footage of violence towards black people.
There was
so-
also a lot of footage of violence that they did on white people, but that didn't make it into videos. You see,
Exactly.
nobody cared about that. Not that it excuses the other.
Part of being a member of the Democrat Party is a required level of insatiable delusion and a willingness to wave off truth. And Patton Oswalt basically demonstrates that in real time. And by the way, he also presents a complete misrepresentation of what actually happened when body cam footage started being released. It was actually quite the opposite of what he claims. For decades, black communities spoke about police brutality, and then starting with several incidents that were videotaped through the 90s and 2000s, bystander videos captured highly selective, highly curated clips that often focused almost exclusively on moments where officers appeared to be acting violently. Those clips shaped the national narrative for years about police brutality. But once widespread body cam footage became available, it revealed a far more complex reality. Many high-profile encounters showed officers responding to escalated, dangerous situations, sometimes in self-defense, sometimes in the middle of chaotic resistance, not blanket, unprovoked violence in the manner in which the narrative had described for years at that point. That doesn't mean every use of force was justified, but it does mean the full context regularly contradicted the viral narrative. So it is actually insane that Patton Oswalt manages to not only undermine himself, but undermine any sort of credibility or intelligence anyone could reasonably place in him. And this moment truly drives home the larger point Maher was making. When your worldview is shaped inside a sealed ideological chamber, what he calls the blue sky bubble, you literally don't remember, acknowledge, or even encounter the policies and cultural crusades your own side pushed, including California's push toward removing sex markers from birth certificates. This is the state of modern Democrats, folks. Modern liberalism today operates as a cycle of cognitive dissonance, elective delusion, and perpetual ignorance, where inconvenient facts are simply erased from memory the moment they stop being politically useful.
People think she's too far left, and that shows another way this country's broken right now.
No, I don't think it's necessarily broken in that way, but it just shows how the country is not there. That is not where the country is, and if you don't...
Unfortunately,
and
okay, that's the one thing, and I hate to admit this. This country is not as mature as it thinks it is. We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out, too. The left freaked out about a lot of bullshit, too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people. Like it's not scientific.
But the left certainly stayed scientific.
No, they didn't.
Why not?
Because they think gender bullshit that they went way too far with. That's not scientific.
How did I'm not trying to. How did they go too far with like gender stuff?
Instead of Well, if I was teaching children, what I would teach them is there is a default setting for the human being, which is heterosexuality, but that doesn't mean every person is that, and we should completely respect everyone who isn't that. But we understand that's called a minority, and what makes us a great country is that we respect minorities. We
Yes.
don't think they're lesser just because they're lesser in numbers. That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
The fact that communists have managed to rebrand their ideological movement as advanced, as some sort of cutting-edge progress, and that they've actually managed to grab a whole segment of the Democrat Party and convince them this is true is beyond me. These people pretend to be educated, and yet they sit around pontificating about how 2-century-old failed ideas are somehow going to move society forward. Where? Failed Marxist ideas, failed socialist experiments, failed collectivist fantasies. Marxism, progressivism, socialism, communism have failed around the world systematically. There is a literal century of evidence, nation after nation, trying these models and ending up as either authoritarian hellholes, collapsed economies, or third world dumps. That's the outcome every single time. More inequality, more suffering, and less freedom. Meanwhile, capitalism has lifted more human beings out of absolute poverty than any other system in recorded history, and the American constitutional republic has guaranteed more individual rights and liberties than any nation has ever managed to do. It has been the single most successful stabilizing, freedom expanding framework the world has ever seen, to the point where our political and economic models have reshaped the entire 20th century and exported freedom and liberties globally. So how anyone could dream of abandoning this already progressive, historically radical model, one that broke thousands of years of monarchy, feudalism, and centralized control, for ideas that are just a reshaped version of old school feudalism under corporatist, socialist, and neo-Marxist packaging, is insane. And that's what makes this Maher-Oswald exchange so revealing. Patton Oswalt talks like the country is broken for not embracing the far left, while Maher points out that the country simply isn't there, and for good reason. Democrats have spent the last decade pushing pseudo-scientific identity dogmas, redefining gender based on ideological preference, and insisting it's progress to detach people from biological reality. When Patton Oswalt claims the left stayed scientific, it perfectly captures the broader crisis, a political movement so steeped in ideological certainty that it genuinely believes rejecting data, biology, and historical evidence is a form of enlightenment. So what we're watching isn't actual maturity, it's just regression dressed up as progress. A cultural moment where delusion is treated as sophistication and where the abandonment of proven systems is marketed as moral evolution. This is the state of modern liberalism, folks. A refusal of objective reality, of the now, and replacing it with an ideological orthodoxy that has proven to fail throughout time, but that they've convinced themselves works purely because they managed to slap a rainbow sticker on it. And speaking of delusional celebrities, Leslie Jones is going viral for, well, check it out.
I'm sick of men telling me, oh, well, you know, you hardcore. Yes, I am.
Can you handle it?
Oh, well, yeah. What you bringing to the table? I am the table.
Jesus. Okay.
Understand why you wouldn't want a woman like me. I am successful, I'm rich, I can fight.
Look, I can't speak for every man, but I can't say this with absolute confidence. The majority of men, if they'd want to date a man, they would just be gay. That's really what this boils down to. I don't know a single guy who looks at the qualities Leslie Jones is bragging about being hardcore, about fighting, about being the table, and thinks, yes, that's the partner I'm picking for a stable relationship. This is the end result of modern feminism, folks, a complete inversion of roles paired with absolute confusion from the very people who keep asking why they're never chosen. You don't get picked as a partner because nobody is biologically wired to want this sort of dynamic. You could probably find some men out there who find her attractive, but there are zero men who find this combative masculine posture appealing as a long-term partner. No guy wants to be dominated or subjugated by the person who's supposed to be building a family with them. And I'm not saying that out of ego, by the way. I'm describing biological reality. Men and women have complementary roles in building families. And when a woman adopts a posture that mimics a male role, no healthy man is going to want to be drawn to that, unless he's closeted or using her as a beard. So what we're watching here is a cultural breakdown where ideology has replaced biology, and the confusion that follows becomes a feature, not a bug, of a society that keeps telling women to be men and then acts shocked when men just aren't interested in that. Anyway, since we got on the retard train, might as well make a stop at Jasmine Crockett and see what she recently had to say about MAGA supporters.
I don't understand why they like him so much, because he clearly don't like them.
What are you
Because
talking
when
about?
42 million people, and I know some of them had to be MAGA, when they needed to line up to get their EBT,
Yeah.
and it wasn't nothing there, he didn't care. So,
What?
you know, I think that people need to get back to prioritizing themselves and their families and their future instead of being dragged to hell by this dude who obviously has them in a cult.
The irony behind Jasmine Crockett's statement is that it doesn't even correspond to reality because MAGA is far from being a cult. If anything, it is the opposite of what a cult requires. For a political movement to actually function like a cult, there has to be ideological uniformity and blind allegiance, and that is precisely what MAGA doesn't have. Yes, there is a shared consensus around supporting Trump and his agenda, but within that support is a wide plurality of worldviews. Traditional liberals who rejected the modern left, former Democrats who felt abandoned by their party, independents disillusioned with the establishment, libertarians, populists, the Make America Healthy Again coalition, and entire communities of voters who simply want economic stability, national security, and cultural sanity. That ideological diversity alone contradicts Crockett's claim. Meanwhile, the actual blind allegiance exists on her side of the aisle. Democrats demand conformity to the most illogical narratives, the gender dogmas, the border denialism, the crime deflections, and anyone who publicly disagrees is instantly excommunicated. You even saw it play out with Kamala Harris when she was announced as the DEI hire for the presidential candidacy. For years, her own party rejected her as an unelectable, awkward, deeply unpopular candidate, and then the instant she became the nominee, the entire Democrat establishment performed a synchronized pivot, suddenly insisting she was brilliant, historic, and beloved. That is how a cult operates. Crockett's rhetoric isn't just wrong, it reveals a deeper problem in American politics where the Democrats project their own ideological uniformity onto others because they cannot comprehend a movement built around voluntary alignment rather than enforced obedience. And ironically enough, Jasmine herself exemplified that cult-like behavior yesterday on the House floor after the Epstein files were released and one of her friends, Stacey Plaskett, was implicated as one of the people who were constantly communicating with Jeffrey Epstein after Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted for child trafficking. And this is how Jasmine defended Stacey Plaskett.
Folks who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly: Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio. I just want to be clear. If this is the standard that we're going to make, just know we're going to expose it all. And just know that the FEC filings, they are available for everybody to review. This is absolutely ridiculous.
And this is how a cult operates, folks. What Jasmine Crockett is doing here is textbook, defending her friend by deflecting, muddying the waters, and pretending that unrelated facts somehow create moral equivalence. There is a massive difference between receiving donations, something no campaign can fully control, and actively working with, communicating with, or being personally connected to someone like Epstein. Anyone can donate to a political campaign. Candidates cannot stop an unsolicited contribution. That's why Jasmine Crockett citing WinRed, a donation platform, is actually absurd. It shows how desperate she is to invent guilt by association where none exists. Meanwhile, what her friend Stacey Plaskett was involved in is categorically different. Plaskett wasn't just some passive recipient of a check. She was actively communicating with Epstein's team, coordinating, and in some records, effectively operating as his congressional handler. That's not a coincidence. That's a relationship. Crockett tries to flip this into some everyone's guilty narrative, but the moment you look at the details, the entire argument collapses. Her claim about Lee Zeldin, too, that's A perfect example. The Jeffrey Epstein who donated to Zeldin is not even the same Jeffrey Epstein. Completely different person. This isn't research. It's just propaganda, the kind of sloppy, bad faith framing you get when a political movement is more committed to protecting its own than actually telling you the truth. And the broader theme here is the same pattern we see again and again from Democrats. When caught, they don't clarify, they just dilute. They don't correct, they just confuse. Because once you acknowledge the difference between an unsolicited donation and an actual relationship, there's no defending Stacey Plaskett, even though she tried really hard and failed.
And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time that he was under federal investigation.
Lies!
And who was sharing information with me.
By the Democrat standard, that alone is enough to send her to prison, folks. Remove her, primary her immediately, lock her up, and let her live with her consequences. Now, obviously, I'm being a little facetious here. Due process actually matters far more than the petty political vendettas Democrats have weaponized for years. But the larger point is unavoidable, folks. Democrats spent weeks insisting Republicans were protecting themselves by not releasing the Epstein files, only for the truth to blow up in their own faces. Virtually no major Republican was implicated, and of course, Epstein's orbit was overwhelmingly Democrat. He was connected to the Clinton world, major Democrat donors, and a long list of liberal elites who cultivated him even after warning signs were obvious. Trump's name appears only during the period when he was politically aligned with both parties as a businessman. So this attempt by Stacey Plaskett to spin her direct communication with Epstein as some innocent, constituent-level misunderstanding is embarrassingly weak. She admits she had a texting relationship with him, claims she somehow didn't know he was under federal investigation despite it being widely known in elite circles, and expects the public to swallow that. What this moment really exposes is how fragile the Democrat Party's moral posture has become after years of framing themselves as the righteous defenders of women and victims. The Epstein files reveal that the rot was overwhelmingly inside their own institutions. If anything is going to collapse over the next few weeks, it won't be the right. It will be the illusion of Democrat moral superiority for sure. And it's happening in real time and very fast, folks, because yesterday, Mayor Karen did a town hall and it went absurdly bad.
A full house in Winter Square for the annual town hall.
Many streets have been dark for months.
LA Mayor Karen Bass here answering pre-written questions from residents.
Of course.
To move to not repairing the street lights, but putting up solar.
The mayor calling for solar street lights in response to recent copper thefts.
How's your Inside Safe doing?
A desire to target large homeless encampments through Inside Safe.
What the goal would be to house all of the folks in the large encampments. So what we would be left with would be one-offs.
There's a blank, as if there's no crime there, and that's been going on for a long, long time.
And crime statistics across the city, some say, haven't been accessible online in 2 years.
I mean, what's going on?
LAPD here? Yes.
I want you guys to know your crime numbers. We're not hiding any numbers.
See what the technology problem is.
What'd you think of tonight?
Well, I thought it was excellent. I thought our mayor spoke well.
Some residents happy with what they heard.
She listened to the community. She heard what our concerns are.
No, she didn't.
Doing all she can to address the homeless issue.
Delusion.
Typical political tap dance.
Yes.
You know, they didn't really answer the questions.
This is the problem. She escapes, no live questions.
While others feel like their concerns and questions weren't answered.
We have some few questions.
Including this one by local business owner John Alley as the mayor walked out.
Our roads are broken. Our police and fire departments are deprived of needed money.
She left very quickly, and the questions that were asked were not of the public.
What's your overall mood?
Optimistic. Always optimistic. Hope for the city, not in the near future.
I'm not really surprised, folks. Democrats are allergic to accountability, and what you saw from Mayor Karen at that town hall is the predictable instinct of a political class that has been insulated from public pressure for years. Mayor Karen, by the way, I love to bring this up, was trained in communist insurgency by the Fidel Castro regime and did participate in the Venceremos Brigade as a young activist, a group that supported the Cuban Revolution and operated with the blessing of the Castro regime, and in the 80s blew up the U.S. Capitol. Karen was shaped by a political environment that romanticized revolutionary politics, centralized control, and top-down social engineering, and you can see echoes of that worldview in her governing style today. Heavy messaging, light transparency, and a deep aversion to unscripted accountability. That's why she only took pre-written questions and why she slipped out the back the moment real residents challenged her on homelessness, crime data, and failing city services. And this isn't just Karen Bass. It's a broader pattern in Democrat cities where leaders rely on curated narratives because the actual numbers undermine them. Crime statistics in Los Angeles have been inconsistently published, selectively framed, or delayed while residents deal with broad daylight burglaries, declining police response times, and a homelessness crisis that continues to outpace our city's capacity. The people in that room weren't angry because of partisanship. They were angry because their lived reality doesn't match the polished rhetoric by Mayor Karen. So what Karen did at that town hall wasn't just political cowardice. It was a glimpse into how modern urban governance works when ideology outruns competence. Leaders smile, message, and glide out the door while the public is left holding the bill for policies they never deliver. And thus we have another example of the age-old mantra, folks. Democrats hate you. They hate you. If Mayor Karen actually cared about her constituents, if she cared about being transparent, accountable, and genuinely representing you as an Angelino who lives here, suffers here, and pays the exorbitant taxes that keep this city running, she would sit there and take your real questions, not hide behind pre-written ones. She would put your concerns above her career, your safety above her narrative, and your lived reality above her polished messaging, but she won't. She will never do it because, like so many Democrats in power, she doesn't have the spirit of service. She has a spirit of career advancement. That's all that matters to her. And it's never been more obvious. So the real question now is, how much longer will people tolerate leaders who physically walk away the moment their failures meet public scrutiny? How long will you let politicians smile in your face while your neighborhood decays, your streets become unsafe, and your voice is treated as an inconvenience? And at what point do we stop accepting curated narratives and start demanding that the people who claim to represent us actually show up, stay in the room, and answer for the city they've created? You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.